Good evening and welcome to the September 13th, 2011 Waterboro Board of Selectmen meeting. If you would kindly rise for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Announcements this evening. The Waterboro Historical Society's annual chili, chowder, and apple dessert contest will be held at the Central Fire Station this coming Saturday, September 17th. The public tasting will take place at 5 p.m. This fundraiser helps support the Society's 5 properties that they own or are caretakers of. If you'd like more information, you may call Diane Holden at 247-5926. Again, that's 247-5926. Any other announcements? Seeing none. We'll move on to appointments. David Benton from the Waterboro Water District. I want to discuss with you your rates and billing. Apparently there is some misunderstanding, or at least we feel there's some misunderstanding on what transpired when we talked with Steve Levy a while back as to exactly what the rates are for the town. And we'd kind of like to hear what your side of it is, and then we'll, counter with what we recall is what happened.
Well, at that meeting, would you like me to?
Yes, if you would, please.
At that meeting, we agreed to a figure that you guys said that you had appropriated, and we went back, and the agreement was that we'd go back and overlook everything after we refinanced all of our loans. And at that point in time, it was going to be the amount of money that we agreed upon then, and then go to the full amount the following year, which would have been this year. I spoke to Dennis at a meeting and let him know, I think it was at a planning board meeting or after that, and let him know that as far as I knew at that point in time, we were not going to be able to go for a rate change because it hadn't changed our financial status at that point. And that's the way it has stayed. We erred in not coming forward before the town meeting and letting you know that. Although, as I see it in the article, it was amount appropriated for 2010 with $42,000. So it was there at the proper amount. Actually, it's only $41,834. But I agree. We didn't come and make an official appointment with you guys and let you know, and we also erred. We were misinformed on how the billing should be done. We were told it would be an annual thing, and since then Steve Levy has researched it, and it can be a quarterly payment. So we erred, and we didn't get the communication properly to you, but in order to change that rate again, we would have to go through the whole process. It would cost the water district another close to $7,000, and that brought us right back to being in a financial situation where it was not feasible. And Steve Levy, he's not here to defend himself, but he failed to forward that information to the board, and so did we. So that information was not forwarded. And that's where we are today.
I think the discussion, David, is really, and even, I think, right after the levy meeting that you and I spoke unofficially, I think it might have been a planning board meeting,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
it was.
But we have still been under the anticipation that Steve was going to get back to us.
Yeah, so
with,
we were also.
So when we went in, and yes, in 2010, we appropriated the 41 or 42, right? but I think we had a pretty well thought out and gentleman's agreement when we all left this meeting that we were going to have spend 36,
Yeah.
okay, which I think we did.
And we were in hopes that we were going to be able to redo the rates, and it just wasn't possible.
So the real question, I think, gets back to, is if in fact the rate is now 42 going forward,
It's 41,834.
then we need some substantiation from you and Mr. Levy with regard to that.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that is in the process, because I called Steve Friday, and he was hoping that he thought he could be here tonight, but it will have to be within the next 2 weeks. He would like to come down and explain more of it to you, either in a workshop or right here at a meeting, whichever you want to do. He would prefer a workshop because he has to travel a long ways and he'd like to get here earlier, but that's up to you guys. And I believe you received another notice that you can toss, and we're going to rebill, and, because we can do it quarterly, and we weren't aware of that. I was not aware of that until last Friday. We were told that it had to be an annual thing, and that was what he told me on the phone Friday. So we can work those things out, and
I think, from my perspective, and I know Gordon and Nancy were here when we had that discussion with you and Steve and whatnot,
yep,
the reason that we didn't challenge those rates was based on that
That's
discussion.
correct.
So we never went to the PUC
yep,
and said we disagree. And that was the agreement coming out of that. So,
Yep.
and I think we're all still waiting to say, okay, what was the outcome?
yep. Well, and like I said, I can't blame it on him because we just never pressured him to get that down to us. So we are as much at fault as Steve is. But now that I have rattled his chain, he is going to get that information together, and as time goes on, we're hoping that from restructuring restructuring our loans will bring us back to the point where we can change it. But as his report, as he read it over the phone to me Friday, it says that we could do it now, but that's $7,000 or $8,000 that it costs to go through the process is just going to add back onto our debt and would bring us back too close, so.
Well, the last time you went 10 years without going to the PUC, or 10 years plus, right? I would
Yep.
presume you're going to do that more frequently now, even though I know it costs you money to do that. But if you can restructure loans and you can do things to reduce the operating costs of that system, since we are obligated to pay 33% of your operating costs,
Yep,
it would be nice on an annual basis to sit and discuss why your operating costs are as high as they are.
oh, I agree.
So-
I agree.
I
Yep,
mean, it's other than, here's your bill.
yep,
I think we need to set something in motion that ties us together for an annual pre-town meeting budget
and I,
generation.
here again, I'm
system.
not trying to pass the buck, but we honestly thought that you had that communication. I don't know what else to say other than that. And if Steve were here, I would make him stand up and defend himself.
Throw him under the bus.
Yeah. Because it's not passing the buck, it's,
Yep.
in
Understand.
reality, that's what we felt.
But I just kept hearing that, well, he had a conversation with me. He never had a conversation
Well,
with
and
me.
that's what
So-
he, no, I'm going to stop right there,
All
okay?
right. The
Okay.
conversation that we had was the night that we were
Yeah,
all
it was
here.
just, he wasn't here, he wasn't part of that conversation, actually. He may have heard what we were talking about, but he didn't say, but that's the gist of it all right now. It's, we didn't think that we were blindsiding you, but I guess we did, and that wasn't our intent, so.
As far as this rebilling that you previously mentioned, is that going to reflect the interest that you were
The
charging? on?
interest, well, that notice is null and void until we get until we get this information down to you so you understand, because in reality, you're not. Because we found now that you can do it quarterly. And you pretty much have paid 2 quarters with what you've given us, so the interest letter was, shouldn't have been sent.
I'm sure.
Mistake on our part.
Anyone from the board have any questions or concerns? Do you have any questions or concerns, David?
Not at this time, other than, I hope you do realize that it's 41,834, not 36,000. And that's all you guys appropriated at the town meeting, is 36,000. So I don't know, and I'm sure that you did that on the fact that you hadn't received the notice, so we have to work that out somehow.
Well, I think, one of the other things that we kind of discussed too was, we haven't had an agreement on the rental space for a long time,
Yep,
on the other side and the office
Yep.
side and whatnot. I know that the Water District has also asked us to put up a secure box for folks to drop payments off here
yeah, but
at
we're paying for
the
that.
town hall. Okay,
Yep,
so maybe we can work something out as far as the lease of the office space to compensate for the difference
Yeah.
from the
that
32 to the 40.
that would work, yeah, yeah. We can work something out there, for sure.
So maybe that's how we work that out.
Yep. If you could get the fire department to shovel the hydrants, we could even work more out. That's another $3,500 a year. It's done in other towns.
It is, other towns that are,
$5,834.
yeah. Other towns that have probably a lot more help than we do.
Oh, I agree, I agree.
I think
Yep.
our resources are pretty slim. I think most of the departments I know that do their own hydrants predominantly are full-time departments, and we just don't have that luxury.
No,
here, so-
and I agree with that, I do, but,
Well, at $42,000, I would expect that the hydrants would be clear if we needed to use them for fire protection.
they are,
Okay.
they are, but it is a cost.
I understand.
Yep,
It's a cost either way. I'm not sure
Yeah.
you're saving
Oh, yeah.
money.
Maybe we could have a campaign to adopt a hydrant, and some of
Yeah,
the
we
water
tried that.
water
We
district
tried
people
that,
can,
we tried that when there was only
2 hydrants.
19 hydrants. We tried and adopt a hydrant, and not one, I think only one person responded. And she was too elderly to do it herself, so it was, you know,
Well, I'm sure we can come to some equitable agreement.
So Steve wants to come down, so I would presume that you'll set something up with,
I'm supposed to call him tomorrow and let him know how things went tonight and how you guys felt about having either, like I said, he'd prefer a workshop because of the time scheme. He does live quite a distance away from here, but that's up to you guys. He will come down for a regular time meeting, it's up to you, totally. If you have it a regular meeting, you better be prepared with plenty of spare time. There's a 15-minute discussion with him
yeah,
is
that doesn't happen.
non-existent.
Do you talk to him very often?
Last Friday for 47 minutes.
Do you talk to him on a regular basis at all?
No, I try not to because he charges us.
Gotcha. He was supposed to do a survey for the folks that lived
That's
on
correct.
Old Alfred Road.
And I
he never
asked him
did
about that also.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Any,
and he said he would check his office. He's better than I am at passing the buck, so. Yeah, I asked him that 4 months ago, and I asked him again Friday.
yeah, because there are still some folks on
Oh,
Old
yeah.
Alfred Road that are interested in,
Yep,
potentially doing.
and that means a lot to have that done.
Be
We'll
interesting.
pin his ears back when he gets down here again.
All right, maybe we can
But I
gang
will
up on him.
forewarn him so he can bring, maybe he's got that already there or something, you know, I'm not trying to stand up for him, but he does have, he definitely has more than his office can do
Yep.
for work. He always has been that way. Dennis knows that. He's always been overbooked, so. But we can,
Well, it was a year ago that we had the meeting with the old Alfred
I
Road
know,
residents,
I
so.
know, I told him that. I told him that.
Well, I guess we don't need to belabor it too much more. Thank you very much.
Yep, just let me know which Tuesday you want to do it and what time, and if you could tell me that in the next couple of days, that'll give him plenty of time to plan on being here. Okay,
We'll do that.
thank you.
Thank you. There are no other appointments.
This be something we could put on the end of old business, or? And set a time tonight?
Actually, Christina could do that when she talks to him, so that we can make sure that he's available.
No other appointments. Hearing and delegation. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on any matter of their concern? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Selectmen's report. Any of the selectmen have anything that they wish to impart?
I spent a few minutes last night. I had several meetings going on, but I wanted, the Recreation Committee had a meeting. I'm not sure they had a quorum, but I spent a little time with Mike, and he went through some of the finances with in funds being collected for the Funergy. And he has a full house. The difference from last year is because he was starting up the program, now he's got a full house from day one. If, I'll say if, and we had talked about this before, collecting the funds and collecting the money from users, that if he does that and fully, he's in pretty good shape, and maybe a couple $1,000s a month in good shape. And so the major thing now is to go with that and not say, oh wow, we're making a profit, let's spend it. So the thing is to be conservative about the spending, and if this is a profitable venture, then it will help fund some of the things that are not profitable. Anyway, that's basically was our discussion last night. It seems to be, the program seems to be making money,
Were you
if
present?
it's collected.
Were you present during the discussion on the proposed skateboard park?
No, I was not.
Oh, okay.
Is it, so this is where the profits go?
No, there was, I was just reading.
No, I wasn't there. I was at a fire department
Okay.
meeting at that time.
All right. Yes,
To follow up on that, I thought we had a discussion last spring, June, about these uncollected fees and kids going to camp, and it wasn't going to continue.
Well, excuse me, David.
No.
I had talked to Mike, and I got some ideas, policies from other towns, and we're going to implement it this year. They have to be paid prior to the start, or they don't start.
So it doesn't sound like that's happening.
No, I mean, I just
No,
said.
it didn't happen this year because the discussion took place too far into the registration, so that next year we'll have a thing saying, yeah, your children can attend,
Okay,
but you have to pay.
I guess I can swallow that, but I can't accept. I think we should set a deadline, and it's paid, or the kid does no longer go into that program.
That's what this will do.
Absolutely.
No, I mean this year.
If it's, I don't know what he has for outstanding. Is it-
He didn't mention
He
that.
mentioned it. I don't know if it was-
I just said if because of last year. So there's no indication that he gave me that there's any late payments this year. And,
as I recall, as I recall the discussion, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, was that we were going to allow the town administrator to approve or disapprove any requests for, payment plan, rather than have Mike DeAngelis do it.
That's right. That was, yeah.
Okay, whatever it was, needs to be done. Okay, not let it ride and ride and ride, and then in February say, oh, well, we don't have $5,000 because it hasn't been paid.
I'll check with him tomorrow and see what he has.
Yeah, there was no indication from him that there was any problem collecting it. I said the if because it was based on last year, that's all. But right now, the amount of participation and the cost of the program, with everything paid, it's a profitable program.
I have one other thing for,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Planning Board is asking the 2020 and the Board of Selectmen to meet with them on October 19th, as a Wednesday, for a joint working session on, I believe it's village zoning. So that's going to be coming up in a month. That's all I have.
There was something that came out on that, I thought.
Yep.
Calendar. Anybody, yes,
Yeah,
Dennis?
just to remind everybody that is interested in recycling, that Eco Maine does have their session next Saturday, the 24th, from 8:30 to 11:30, if anybody's interested in going in and reviewing what they're doing. I think we still got that up on the web, right?
Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, town administrators report.
Still, as I had sent an email before I went out on vacation last week, that had somebody come in to talk about a new phone system, and I expect the proposal the end of this week. And one of the things that we'll do is we'll be able to eliminate some lines to the transfer station and the library because it'll come through here. The fire department, because of their business, they will have a small one, but so when somebody calls here and needs the transfer station, we can just forward the call right to them. And it will have what I told them here, I wanted a trunk line, so if somebody calls and this phone is busy, it's going to keep going until they get somebody to answer. See?
It's a hunt feature.
Hunt feature, yeah.
Now, wasn't there a fairly significant
Yes.
cost savings to the town by doing that?
Yes. If we do away with those two lines, we'll save almost $1,400 a year. And looking at our bills right now, we can save $215 a month. And that's not included the $1,381. So we're gonna, once we get the proposal and we sit down and look at it and say, how many lines do we need? What can we get rid of? Then we're probably going to reduce it even more.
It's probably much more likely that in those places, you're going to have a delayed response in answering the phone than it would be coming in here, too. You're going to have more personnel here, so at the transfer station, they could all be unavailable at the time, and the library could be closed, or so that should give people a little bit better response, too, I would imagine.
And we'll have, I told them on it also, too, that if everybody is busy and there is no line open, that it will just say, your call is important to us, and it will say you're number 2 in line. And during that time, it will be giving out messages saying, town meeting is coming up, and giving out information as people are waiting, so.
Yeah, that important to us is great. When you get it from the IRS and an hour later, you're still listening, it's important to us. So there's still, even though it says that, it's very important to get a human voice.
Yeah, it is, and that was my biggest thing with him. I told him, I said, we wanted a system that when somebody calls, they can get somebody.
And does it also have, I know one of the things we had talked about was the ability to have like an information line where we could have a line that was set up if somebody needed just hours of operation or whatever, they could just call and get that number as opposed to a person, and then if we had some kind of an emergency or whatnot, we had something we could get into easily to change information on.
We can change easily from a PC. It's going to be any changes that we be made from a PC. And we also can forward any phone calls here to cell phones. So, and David is working on a notification system too.
I guess we can assume that it won't be routed through someplace in New Delhi, India, or something like that. That'll be local. Anything more to report?
Oh, just one more thing. We're having a kickoff CIP meeting with the department heads on Thursday, so I need to know what the selectmen are looking at for general government for CIPs. One of them, I'm assuming, is still the roof. But I don't know, we have talked about repaving the parking lots too. I don't, just let me know what you want so that we can start gathering the information on it.
Anything further? Okay. We'll move on to new business. Correction on that. We have a report from Regional School Unit number 57. Is it paid?
Good evening.
Good evening.
School started for this school year on September 30th. We didn't delay school due to Hurricane Irene, except for Shapley Elementary School in the district because the elementary school itself was without power. So we did delay school one day at Shapley. Otherwise, the superintendent felt that it was important to start school when it was scheduled to start because he felt that for some people who didn't have power, it was a way for those kids to still get a hot meal during the day, have running water, and be in a place where there was electricity and lighting. So we did go ahead and start school on the day that it was scheduled. I know there was some discussion about a bus situation that happened over in Lake Arrowhead, and I'll touch on that a little bit. Apparently there were some trees on lines, and the bus went underneath of that, and this is the response that the board got from the superintendent upon request of an explanation. He says, here are greater details to hopefully clarify any questions or concerns that may come your way. The road was not closed and traffic was traveling on this road in both directions. CMP stated that if the road was a danger, they would have closed it completely. When the driver reached the point in the road where the picture was taken, he radioed Tim and Selena, which are our transportation coordinators, for direction. CMP was contacted and they indicated it was safe to travel under the tree and on this road. If it was not, they would have closed the road completely to all traffic. The lines were not active and CMP felt the tree was not a danger. The driver was asked if he could turn around and there was no safe ability to turn the bus around at that location. The road is narrow and this location appears to be on a slight hill and curve. The only option was to move forward. If other safe options had been available, they would have been utilized. Please rest assured that Tim and Selena have protocols in place for such emergency situations, and safety is our primary concern at all times. Had there been any concern whatsoever, they would have found an alternative route or resolution to the problem. Based on the information available to Tim and Selena, this was the best and safest course of action. And the response from the Transportation Committee Chair was that they would make sure that they would have that on the agenda for the September Transportation meeting agenda, so which was held last night. So I don't know the outcome of that meeting, but they were going to put it on the agenda to discuss that and make sure that if there were any questions regarding it, that they could take care of that. I want you to know that videotaping of the board meetings has begun again, and they will be shown on Channel 16. DVD copies will be available at Central Office. They are not, however, going to distribute DVD copies to the libraries, as was done in the past. They felt that that was not being utilized, and it was an additional cost that they didn't think needed to be incurred. And I am technologically challenged, and I am the first one to admit that. But the IT director told me that they will also be on Vimeo. Alrighty, so somebody knows what that means. It went right over my head.
It's like
But-
YouTube.
Okay, and we're trying to see if there's some link through the district website that can utilize that. Because of that, because we have begun taping, just the simple logistics of taping the board meeting, where we had in the past traveled to the different schools in the district to hold our board meetings, and we will be staying at the middle school so that the equipment can remain at the middle school, and it's easier for the videographer to set everything up prior to our being there and not have to travel to the other schools. So all board meetings at this point in time will be held at the middle school on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month at 7 p.m. This Thursday, the Finance Committee is conducting a building walkthrough for all of the buildings in the district. They will start at Lyman, go to Alfred, and to Shapley, to Lyon Elementary School, and then to Waterboro, to the 3 schools in Waterboro. This gives the Finance Committee the opportunity to look at the buildings, see their conditions, see what might need to be done, set their program for the process of funding for improvements or action on the buildings, and it also gives them the opportunity to congratulate the people who work so hard to keep the buildings looking nice and keeping them in good running order. The Finance Committee primarily is doing that, but other board members are welcome to join. I would assume if any of you would like to join with that, you could just contact central office and they could give you more information about that. And it would be best if the Finance Committee knew that you were coming so that they could be prepared for your arrival and not begin without you. I've spoken in the past about the RISC program that the district is in, and that stands for Reinventing Schools Coalition. And I wanted you to know that there are 9 districts. It's a 9-district cohort that is now working on that, and more districts are looking to join with us. They have formed a 5013C to be able to apply for grants to help with funding. Originally, the RISC program was funded by the state of Maine, and as their money dried up, they dried it up right down the line to everybody else. So we haven't had funding for that for quite some time, and one way that we raise funds to continue the process is that we have other schools that are interested in implementing this program come to us, or we go to them and they pay for our instruction on the RISC program, and that generates revenue. We're seeing a lot of interest with that, and we expect to see more. The consultant that we've been working with is right now scheduled, I don't know if a meeting has been permanently scheduled, but is looking to meet with the State Department of Education to give a report, and the hope is that the entire state itself will go to a RISC model in education for the state, and we'll certainly be seeing more groups joining in with this process. The costs for it right now, we are able to pay for those costs through grants that we have and through the bringing in of funds for training other groups. As our people go out and train other schools, they begin to gain the valuable experience of leading the discussions, and therefore down the road we feel that we can cut the costs of the RISC program because our people will be well trained enough that they can conduct the training. It currently costs almost $5,000 to have a consultant come, and that includes their travel expenses and their consulting fees. So the more people we can get well trained, the less we will have to utilize the RISC consultants coming to our district. And that way we'll be able to be self-sufficient with that. And we currently have about 80% there are currently 80 employees remaining in the district that need to get through the level 2 training. Everybody's been trained in level 1, and 80 employees remain to get through the level 2 training, and they must get through that prior to the end of the 2011-2012 school year. You may have noticed recently in the Waterboro Reporter that our current superintendent, Frank Sherburne, was up for the job as superintendent in RSU 6. Last Tuesday, on the 6th of September, he was approved by the RSU 6 board to take that position, and we received on September 7th the resignation from Mr. Sherburne. The final details of his time remaining with the district are yet to be determined. The board meets for a regular meeting tomorrow evening. While the board chair has received his resignation, action cannot be taken on that resignation except by the full board. The full board hired him, and only the full board can set the details of his departure. So the board will meet tomorrow evening and discuss those details to be finalized. I can tell you that the district cannot legally operate without a superintendent, and interim superintendent interviews have already been conducted. There is a candidate that will be moved forward to the board tomorrow evening, and the board will make its decision as to whether or not to put that candidate into place. I will keep you informed of that process of finding a new superintendent as we move along with that. Right now, it is the intention of having an interim superintendent in place for the entirety of the 2011-2012 school year. The hope would be that we could find someone that would step in on July 1st of 2012 and begin their work here with the district, but we will take that as it comes, and we will move forward with that when we find a suitable candidate. So if it's not by July 1st, then we will continue to look for a suitable candidate, and I can keep you informed of what I'm legally allowed to tell you as that process goes along. One thing on policy that I wanted to make people aware of in this venue is that I think I've spoken before about a policy called JJIC, and it is an eligibility policy, an academic eligibility policy for the district. We worked very hard on it a number of years ago, and it was put into place, and people were unhappy with how it was going, and so we pulled the policy back, and we began the process of looking at it again. It was a little complicated by the fact that the high school went to trimesters, and that changed the process of how eligibility was to be figured, but we did work again on the policy and put forth a new version of it in spring of last year. It went into effect. It has already created some controversy with kids that are not eligible to participate in extracurricular activities. So I'm going to hit the high points for you so that you understand a little bit of what it involves. You have to be a full-time student at Massabesic High School, and to be a full-time student you have to be enrolled in 4 courses and passing all 4. 3 courses and passing all 3 for seniors. During a typical day, there are 5 blocks during a trimester schedule. So to be a full-time student, you have to be taking a class for 4 blocks and passing all 4. If you're taking a 5th block, then, and there is a class in that, then there is some leeway as to your grades. But in the trimester prior to when you wish to participate, so if you're going to play a fall sport, the spring trimester, the 3rd trimester of the year, school year prior, is what will be counted for your grades for participation. And in that trimester prior, you cannot receive more than 1 F or 1 F and 1 D to be eligible for probation. Students with 2 Fs or 1 F and 2 or more Ds lose eligibility for the following trimester. Seniors must pass all 3 courses to be eligible. So if they're only taking 3 courses, they have to pass all 3. A student may turn no more than 1 failing grade into a passing grade, a 70 or a P for passing, through minimum credit recovery. So they can, after the trimester ends, if they failed a class, they can go through credit recovery to try and regain that credit of the class that they failed. But they can only do it for 1 class. So if you had 2 Fs, you can't regain eligibility by getting credit recovery for both Fs. So if they do that, then it's over a 3-week probationary period that you try to gain credit recovery. Probation is a time period of no more than 3 weeks when a student may recover eligibility. So if they recover their eligibility in 2 weeks, then that's fine, but it can't be longer than 3. If you couldn't accomplish it in 3 weeks, you will not regain your eligibility. If a student starts a trimester on probation, and at the time of the second progress report, that student is again in academic difficulty, 1F, and 2 or more Ds, the student becomes ineligible. A student on probation may remain on the roster and participate in practice only. And that is allowed, especially with sports, to keep their physical abilities up and keep them in shape so that if they can regain eligibility, they don't end up getting hurt because they weren't physically ready to go back. Credit recovery may be used to regain eligibility through earning course credit to meet minimum course requirements. A student who participates in credit recovery over the summer will serve the 3-week probationary period starting on the first day of that student's fall sport or activity. So students who think that they can fail something their 3rd trimester, take it in summer school and not go through the probationary period, they will still go through the 3-week probationary period at the beginning of the fall season. These students need to meet minimum eligibility standards in order to retain eligibility. So fortunately, the principal calculated that fall eligibility numbers for athletics only show that nearly 96% of Massabesic High School students who went out for something were eligible. So that's a note to our students that they're doing well and they're keeping their eligibility up, and we hope that 100% will be eligible by maintaining these standards. But this also applies not just to sports, but it applies to anything that maintains a roster. The drama club, the debate team, the math club, anything that maintains a roster, you must meet eligibility to be able to participate in that. So that's, it's caused a little bit of a stir, and unfortunately 96% were eligible, but 4% weren't. And so there were some kids who were not able to participate in things this fall because of their grades in the 3rd trimester of last school year. So that's where we stand on that, and that's all I have to pass along, unless there's something you have to ask of me.
Seems like a pretty comprehensive report.
Okay?
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good.
My whole thing just blipped out and rebooted.
Not a problem.
Yeah, it was one of those where you have to reboot after it installs, and I've been hitting do it later, and I was so enthralled with Lisa's report that I
Now you're gonna do
neglected
it
to see
later.
it. Now it's rebooted itself. So technology is wonderful. Okay. Next item on the agenda is new business, and we'll discuss the municipal purchasing policy changes. So I would presume that is in your domain.
This came about from the request from the department heads on being able to approve their own purchase orders. Our current policy is 11 pages long. The proposed one is 2 pages. And also I included a use of the town credit card and also an updated payment policy to when the payroll has to be submitted, and the process for that, and the process for invoices. Most of it is from that. The only thing I think that is added is if we have a new vendor, the W-9 has to be submitted with the invoice instead of the invoice being submitted and either myself or Julie has to call and get the W-9 before we can pay the vendor's invoice. I'm sure the board members looked at it.
My only thought, kind of idea that played in my head was, and thinking about the accruals that we've had over the past 2 years now, is if it would be wise to have something in the policy that would prohibit a department head from approving their own purchase orders if their budget is 80% expended or in the last 30 days of the fiscal year. Just to kind of give us that little bit of an insurance.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. It's,
that's
instead of spending 80% all within,
Or within 30 days.
I would even, if you're going to do that, it would even go 60 days.
I'd go, yeah, 60 or 90 or whatever. but-
Something so that we've,
We
you know,
don't run
there's
into the
that
accrual
red
issue.
flag, right,
Yeah.
you know, you get to a certain percent expended, or you don't have them going out in the last 30, 60 days of the year and trying to spend everything, and then at the last minute, something else catching up and,
Yeah, I think it's especially important in the last 30 days. I'm not sure I'd want to put an arbitrary percentage on it, but certainly any department that is getting close to complete expenditure of their budget, that it would be the administrator's prerogative to say, you cannot spend any more without coming through me first. And, you know, I'd like to give her that, rather than putting an arbitrary percentage, I'd like to give her that authority to say, okay, it's got to come through me first. But the last 30 days, absolutely, I think we need to have real solid controls. Matter of fact, in some cases, all spending, except absolutely necessary spending is finished as of May 30th. In other words, up front, department heads say, you can't go out and buy something that you've wanted all year long, and you can't buy it and just because you think you have more money in your department, you can go out and buy stuff in June to spend your budget down. So there, I think as of May 30th, spending stops except for, and it would have to come through directly through Nancy first. I'd like to have her have that authority.
And this will also too, because I know we have the emergency spending. This delegates what to do on the weekends or with the weekend holiday, that they have an allotted time to get that information back on what they spent, or they lose the privilege of having emergency purchases. And purchases with our credit cards, they have to have a purchase order and a receipt. It's going to be up to the department heads.
In this whole process, Nancy, if you're out for a week, whether it be ill or on vacation, can the purchase, the expenditures that come in, come through you, does that stop, or does someone else, can Christine?
It says or designate,
Okay,
so it can either be Christina or it can be Matt.
okay. And just as I'm going through this, bills come in. If a bill comes into the town office and it goes to recreation or, let's say, the fire department, if it comes into you, do you send it to the fire department? Do you send it over to Mike, or does it come from your office to his?
Christina gets the mail and she sorts it in the mailboxes
Okay,
for Parks and Rec, road, fire department.
so they're the first people actually that see it. And then what they're going to do is they've got a short time period to check that against the invoices, against packing slips, et cetera. And then that comes back to you? Okay, and then from you it goes to the treasurer?
Correct. I have to They put the account number and the vendor number on.
Yeah.
And they approve them over
So
there. And then I
now
can
if-
review them and
If
approve them.
you're out, then it would come to your designee at that time, okay.
But what I do is when the invoices come in, what we have, I have them spread out during the week. I should have a folder for each week of the month, and whatever the due date is however we pay them. Some weeks, it's the third week is our big pay week. Some months it's our third, and some months it's our second. You know, it all depends on when all the due dates come.
Something comes in now, let's say on a Friday. Monday we have off. Tuesday people are not here until 11 o'clock. So a bill could come in on let's say on Thursday afternoon or something like that. No one sees it until the earliest Tuesday afternoon. And if a person is out, let's say the department head is on vacation for a week, does not have a designee there, it could languish there for a week, and then it theoretically could come back here, and if it could be 2 or 3 days. So theoretically, you could have a bill kind of bouncing around in here for about 3 weeks, max.
The payroll situation, does that correct the problem that we had last year regarding per diem for the fire department? We sort of got hit with that as an accrual
Yes.
after the fact. So that remedies that situation.
Yes and no.
Kind of ambiguous, but
Because what got submitted covered from January 1st to June 30th. That was why we received it after June 30th, so that is why it's considered an accrual.
So is that something that can be adjusted to break it up, perhaps quarterly or monthly, so that we're not running into that full 6-month accrual at the end after
Yeah,
July?
they'll have to adjust it in their budget this year. Have to make sure it's covered.
anyone have any other comment on these issues? Okay. We'll wait all those amendments are down that we just spoke of and see the new document, and we'll put it on the agenda for
This will be these will be the new documents. The 11-page one will be gone.
yeah, but I mean the changes that we just discussed.
Oh,
So
yeah, I'll just
so
add the, you want 60 days or 30 days?
I'd prefer 60, but
For the end of the year?
I agree.
Yeah. Oh, wait,
That will require the town administrator approval on purchase orders.
and, yeah, yeah.
And I don't know how anybody, I know how John feels about the 80%. I still would be more comfortable having a percentage in there when their budget reaches a certain, because they have to consider, coming up to the end of the year, they're going to have taxes, they're going to have payroll, and I think that 80% is a good flag to say, all right, you're not spending anymore unless it goes through Nancy first.
The only reason why I have some difficulty there is that different budgets are spent at different times of the year, and sometimes the budget is front-loaded, and it may be 80% expended in April, but you're not going to expend very much more because it requires the expenditure and the most expenditure in the fall. So, I mean, that type of thing can happen.
Yeah. Or it will happen within the first 6 months, especially with the road department,
Yeah.
because that's when they're going to be doing their road work.
Yeah, brush cutting and things like that can all be, kind of be done in the fall.
Okay, any more discussion on this? No?
Can I
Christina?
ask a
But-
question on that?
sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
If I ask a
Sure.
question? So if a department does have money left at the end of the year and they're not allowed to use it, are they gonna be able to roll that over? if there is money left, say the highway department wanted to buy some culverts with money that was left in ditching, or Mike wanted to buy some equipment for Parks and Rec.
My thought would be no.
So in other words, their budget ends 60 days from the end of
Technically.
fiscal year.
So that they will have something in there so they don't run into the accruals, which is turning around and biting them.
The
Well, I
problem
agree
is
with
we're
that, but
seeing
What
60,
happens if they get to the end of the year and they have $10,000 left?
Did it go through Nancy?
Well,
The thing is, they can't do it
Believe
themselves.
me, I don't think anybody's gonna have $10,000 left. And that's the problem that has been done in the past, is the department head used to come in on the last day, get a purchase order, and at that point, that was when, if you get a purchase order for X amount and you got it in June 30th, but you didn't take possession until after July 1st. It came out of that, but now it's not. We don't, purchase order does not, purchase orders expire June 30th, no matter when they was made out.
Yeah, I just think on something like that, you let's say have a department that comes in and has quite a surplus going into the beginning of June. Nancy knows the whole budget, knows what we've done in here, because if you have one department with a fairly large surplus, we might have already authorized her to move some of that money over to another department that is overspent. And if the department head didn't go out and spend a bunch of money, and then it comes to Nancy to approve, he's already committed it, the expenditure, and that's where we get into trouble. So I think at that time, that doesn't mean that a department can't spend, but Nancy has a good understanding of where the whole budget is in May and June, and it'll have to come through her before they can spend it.
And I know what you're talking about, David, but you gotta realize if it does not roll over into surplus, what little there is now, because we're so tight on our budgets, there's gonna be more that's gonna have to be taken out of taxation the following year. So we can't, I don't believe in, if a department has $10,000 left over the end of the year, they get to keep it. I mean, it's better if it goes in the surplus, then we reappropriate it. Because if you keep that $10,000 in there, I think, it's good,
It's an accounting thing.
it's accounting.
My understanding is that they cannot spend it unless they get the approval of the town administrator. So it doesn't necessarily mean that those funds are locked. It just means that they don't have the key right then, the town administrator does. And because she knows the whole budget, she may say, yes, you can spend X number of dollars for this because you've shown justification, and there is funds currently within your budget that haven't been either allocated somewhere else or encumbered by things that you've already done.
Yeah.
Now, is that a
Yeah,
fair understanding of
and
it?
if they keep the money that they've expended, is that gonna give them $10,000 more on their budget? Because if that's gonna do it, then that's just gonna have a domino effect. Okay, they get $10,000, they wanna keep it, it's all right, we gotta take $10,000 out of taxation. Whereas if it all rolls over into surplus, we can say, okay, now we can evenly distribute it.
Mr. Fay?
I'm just going to say that, any budget is approved by taxpayers, right?
Correct.
So if you want to put that in surplus, my opinion is, put it in surplus. Don't help somebody else out if you're going to have the last word on all these accounts, right? So you should know what's going to happen with this account here or this account here. So I agree with putting it in surplus. I don't agree with putting somebody else's, I'll tell you right now. I may be a bad boy, but I'm not like that.
Well, the selectmen per the charter, they can take the balances and
I know.
balance out the whole budget. So if this department is under, then this department, so they can balance it, but whatever's left over goes in the surplus to be reappropriated at the next town meeting.
Does the town have a lot of surplus? No, I'm just asking. Just yes or no?
What do we got? Do you remember?
2.4?
2.4 million is the fund balance, but that's not all cash.
Oh, I
I
understand.
mean, part of that is taxes that are due and all of that stuff. You also go in every year at town meeting and assume that we're going to make a tax commitment and there's going to be revenues that come in that are going to equal what the budget is, right? When the revenues don't come in, okay, you have to deal with that as well. That's,
Any more discussion on this from anyone? Okay, if you put that on the agenda for next week, Christina, to vote on these policies when we see the final version. Okay, the next item on the agenda, I can only assume is why we have an extra large gathering of citizens of the community who've been waiting patiently on this. Selectman Gerard had received a request by email, I believe, for the town to grade Logan Circle. And I would presume that that's why most of you are here, is for the discussion on Logan Circle.
That would be correct.
Okay. I would like to preface the discussion on this with what the statute is, in that the board is prohibited from expending any municipal funds on a private road. So with that in mind, we'll open the discussion from anyone who would care to come up to the podium. If you'd please identify yourself, because this is being recorded and minutes taken, and then you may say what you...
I'm Dan Hurley. I'm the one that wrote the email.
Okay.
I first of all wish to thank Tammy and all of you for putting it on the agenda. I'm not really a public speaker, so bear with me. The bottom line is, yes, I understand the statute. We all do, okay? And that's if it was simply a private road versus a public road matter, end of discussion. But life is not always black and white. Some things are gray. This happens to be one of those gray areas, okay? You have a public park, which was originally Ossipee Pines, donated to the town, which has since been reallocated over to the Land Trust, rededicated to Bob Fay, and it's made use by the general populace at large. And that burden of fixing the road, plowing the road, doing work to the road falls on a handful of people. A lot of the people that live on that road are elderly. I mean, it's just a situation where we don't have the expertise, we don't have the equipment, we don't have the manpower. But collectively, I would venture to say that property taxes, we probably generate about $150,000 in that area to the town a year. And what we're really asking for is we stepped up, we took care of the plowing, we take care of the plowing. That's the biggest thing that goes. But as you know, last year we had a lot of storms, it ate our budget up. What happens is, generally speaking, in the spring and in the fall, we like to have the road graded so that we have a good base going into the plow season. And it is an expensive proposition for us to try to undertake. The town, on the other hand, does have access to the knowledgeable people with the equipment, and in the past, your prior predecessors had recognized that problem. Historically, the previous Board of Selectmen at one point had allocated $2,000 to the Parks and Recreation Department for maintenance of the road. And then Mike DeAngelis had said that the park was officially closed in November and doesn't reopen until April, so therefore the problem of snow plowing and snow removal is your problem. Okay, we accepted that, because when we needed some road work done, it was done by the town. And I'm not sure if a bill was submitted to the rec department or how it got paid, if it went out of the road department. That's not my business. The following year, Mike, in his budget, because of budget restates, reduced the amount of allocation from 2,000 to 1,500. So second year in a row, budget was allocated, handled, done, and, work has been done. This year, we noted that, we needed to have it graded, and so that's why we're here. We're asking you to kind of continue with the pattern that has been going on, and I don't think that the actual cost of grading the road twice a year is really a huge number. You know what I mean? I don't know, I'm not a construction guy, but I look at it and say, it just seems to me that in the spirit of fair play or fairness, it's a little unreasonable because of the unique situation. And by the way, when it was rededicated to the Bob Fay Park, it was a pretty good attendance. The town did a wonderful job and made it into a beautiful park that the public can enjoy.
Can I just interrupt right there?
Yeah.
The park is now owned by the Land Trust, and the Land Trust is not an entity of the town.
Right.
The Land Trust is its own private, nonprofit organization that is not a part
Right,
of the
but
town
does-
of Water. So I just want to make sure that folks
I
are
know
clear
that.
of that.
I know that. But does it come under the jurisdiction of just you or the Parks and Rec Department as well?
It doesn't come under the town of Waterboro at all, not the Parks and Rec Department, not the town of Waterboro at all. It would be like if you owned the park.
Okay.
It's a private entity that owns the Bob Fay Park now, not
Okay.
the town of Waterboro.
But it is open to the public at large?
It's open to whomever the Waterboro Land Trust opens it up to.
Right, which is the public.
Right.
And the only access to it is either by boat, swimming, or through this private road.
Yep.
Therein lies the crux of the problem. If it was simply a private road, so be it. But what's happened is the population at large likes to make use of the facility, and therefore, it gets use. And that use causes a deterioration if there's no maintenance going on. We do the best that we can with the resources that we have. But as I previously stated, a lot of the area, okay, falls on the people that are here. That's why they're here. You know what I mean? We can only do so much. And us taking on just the plowing and the maintenance of it over the winter time is quite a bit. And so that's why we would like to have, as we had in the past, have a grader run through once or twice a year, simply to make it a passable situation. And that's what we're asking you to okay. Okay? I understand the legal argument, okay? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's a moral dilemma in one sense, and we're asking you, on behalf of your constituents, to look at that issue. Now, I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to add. So that's basically, if you have questions, I'll try to address them, but,
How does a landowner on Logan Circle get permission to use the road? I mean, in other words, if I buy a lot of it, how do I get, it's a private road, how do I get permission?
the town says that they have a right-of-way. I'm not a lawyer. It's not in my deed. The road's been there before I came, and it's gonna be there after I go.
Well, I just wanted, because, the land trust has property there now, and how do they get permission to use the road?
Well, I don't know this, it's just been assumed, okay? It's never been investigated, we don't want to go to war over this thing, it's not
No,
worth
I'm
it.
just trying to figure out who does what, and
Yeah.
who has access to it, and, there is some responsibility there.
I appreciate that, and that's what we're saying too. We're trying to work with the community at large, but it's a financial burden, that with the economic times being what it is, it's becomes a little bit difficult. And as the population on the street becomes more elderly, some of them are really strapped where they can't even contribute. Okay, so that lessens the numbers, so to speak. Did you have a question?
First of all, I want to congratulate you on the way you presented this, because you presented it as a problem, and some of the moral issues of that problem are ethical issues, let's say, of the
Thank you.
problem. And so that I see it that way. Ultimately, though, the way we have to follow the state laws. One of the things that you can do is you could petition town meeting in the spring to make this into a town road. And then the town is responsible for the upkeep of it.
I appreciate that, but we can't do that. We can petition the town to maybe allocate some money to help. But to become a town road, the property owners have to agree to give the town a 25-foot right-of-way easement. On my end of it, coming in from Weber down to the Turtle Cove, majority of that land is owned by two people, Charles and Paul Marble. Charles lives in Florida, Paul lives in Virginia, and they will not give the town the 25 feet. So that ends that possibility of trying to make it a public road.
Maybe you ought to, I don't know how you divide up the cost, but maybe by road frontage, but those
We're
people
not-
have a
we're-
little bit larger
I
stake in
understand,
it.
but we're not a road association.
Yeah.
And we tried to talk about forming that, and it was not something that could be done. So we have, looked into that, and I appreciate your observation, but my hands are a little tied here, and I'm a little frustrated too, excuse me, but I am, because it's something that had been approved and allocated in the past, and all of a sudden, poof. And what are we really talking about? Grading twice a year?
Yes, go ahead.
I sympathize with you wholeheartedly, and there are so many private roads within this community, and there are people that are facing very similar situations.
Not with a
as you
park
are.
in the middle of it.
Andrews Lane, they're the only access to a piece of property that is owned by the state that's a fishing place, and so they have the same problem that you folks are having, in that they have constant traffic that's going up and down this private road, and there's only, I think, 3 or 4 people on that road that are actually trying to maintain it. The problem is the state law is very specific. It's not that the town doesn't want to help, it's that the town can't help. The state law says that we can't. And if we do, what happens, the position that the town is put in, if we start working on private roads, is that the town is liable for any damages, for any injuries, for any, an employee would to get hurt, a resident would get hurt, and because it would be against state law for us to work on a private road, what happens is that insurance company for the town then does not have to cover that liability. So it puts the entire town and all of the folks within the town. So let's say that we have somebody that goes out and grades a private road, and they hit a pedestrian walking on the side of the road, and that pedestrian has, $1 million in medical bills and decides to sue the town. The insurance company for the town doesn't cover that. It's our sole responsibility of all the taxpayers to have to cover that. The other thing that happens is that the town could be held in antitrust laws violations. Because we're a municipality, a lot of the equipment, the material that we get for doing road work, just all of the materials, we tend to get it at a discounted rate, which is oftentimes less expensive than a private contractor could get it in. And there's actually been an instance where it wasn't in the state of Maine, it was in another state, I believe in Boulder, Colorado, where a lawsuit was filed by a private entity against this town because they were doing work on a private way, getting the materials and whatnot at a discounted rate, which violated antitrust laws. And even though there hasn't been that type of a claim in the state of Maine, the legal department at Maine Municipal Association is saying that that potentially could happen to municipalities in the state of Maine as well. So as you see it, it's just a matter of the town going and running the grader over the road. For us, it's a lot bigger problem that we have to look at. It's the consequence of if we do that and heaven forbid something happens. Now, I would say that the land trust is the new owners of the park, and I'd say that there is some onus on the land trust to help with the maintenance of that roadway leading into the park. And I think that that's, a venue that the folks down in that area need to address. And I think that the land trust has always felt that they were going to be involved with some of the upkeep of the road. So I don't want to make it sound like we're just dismissing you. For us, for the
Yeah,
board,
right.
it's a bigger problem than
Right,
than
you're
what you're looking at.
redirecting us to the land trust, in essence.
I think that's part of where you need to talk to, because they're the owners now of the park at the end of the road.
All right. Who is the land trust?
Doug Foglio is the president of the land trust, so that would be your contact person.
He would, there's a lady that wishes to speak in a moment, but I have the deed here to that property, and you were questioning, you said it wasn't in your deed, as to what you have and all the other landowners have is a right to pass. And that was conveyed in this deed here, where it says in each of these conveyances, the use in common of any and all rights of ways to and from said lots or parcels is likewise given.
Right, and that's the Hanscom, right?
Right, this is
Right.
the Hanscom
But
thing.
the
So,
Marble one doesn't have anything.
I don't know what section of that property that you're referring to.
I'm just bringing that point.
Yeah,
One end of Logan used to be Hanscom Road Extension, and that's in there, okay? The other end, which runs through the Marble, that's not in there, okay? So, and that's the end that a lot of people use, okay?
and if I'm
So-
not mistaken, and anyone on the board can correct me if I'm wrong, but the section that leads into Bob Fay Park
There's a trail code.
at one time was the town had an interest in, and that's why it was plowed and so forth. But when it was conveyed, we no longer have that interest.
Right.
And so there's two sections of that road, as I see it, because when you get down to Fay Park, you have to make that left and then go down, and you eventually come out further down.
Yeah.
Because I had occasion to take a ride down there the other day.
Were you on a bike?
Yes, I was on a bike. Yeah.
God bless you. Thank you for coming and looking.
And I was meeting with another resident who happens to be here, and if he wishes to speak to the issue, that's his prerogative, but I'm not going to, point that individual out right now. But we had quite a lengthy discussion, and part of the issue down there is because the road is actually owned by someone else. Even the landowners down there may be treading on some legal issues if they wanted to do anything to the road, because all this grants you is a right to pass and not a right to do anything to the road. So there's so many legal entanglements here that, as Tammy said, it's not that we're not unsympathetic to the situation down there. It's that, as you said, your hands are tied because of the Marble situation. Our hands are tied because of state law. And I realize, and so does everyone on the board, that there's a significant amount of tax dollars that are generated from the properties that are located along the lake there. And I can understand your frustration when you sit down there on an iced tea looking over the lake saying, geez, I really don't get much for my tax dollar. Because you don't have trash pickup.
Yeah, no water, sewer, right?
Yeah,
Kids in
and,
school, none of it.
all that type
Yeah,
of
I
situation. So I understand the frustration, and, there was some debate as to whether or not we even wanted to, entertain this issue this evening, but we felt that it was an important issue, and it's certainly important to you that we would, bring it out and air all the sides to it.
I'm glad you did.
Now,
We appreciate it.
with that said, I'd like to recognize this lady in the back.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir.
I'm Deb Sullivan. I obviously live on Logan Circle also. I actually have a comment and a question. The comment is, there's a safety issue also. As he said, a lot of us are getting older. There are some really elderly who are on the road. For emergency vehicles to get down, that should be something to take into consideration also. And that's my comment. The question is,
Before you move on, I can answer to that,
Yeah.
actually. State law, even though it's a private way, it does not allow for municipal vehicles to go down there.
so if someone's down and out,
We can't maintain it just for access for emergency vehicles. State law does not
can
hold...
emergency vehicles go down? Do they?
Yes,
Are
they do.
allowed to?
They are, if you call them for that service. But the state law does not allow us to maintain the roads just for those, so that the ambulance has. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I mean, my personal feeling is I feel if we have roads in the town of Waterboro, we should be taking care of them, whether they're private or a public road. I feel that that's something that we should be doing for our citizens. Unfortunately, the state has tied our hands in what we can and cannot do.
Which leads me to my question, which is, how did the Ospey Pine Park get put into a land trust? How was that process done? Who put it there?
The Waterboro Land Trust went before the voters 3 years ago. There was actually a ballot issue that asked if the citizens of the town of Waterboro...
That would be at the annual meeting?
It was on the
Yeah.
ballot. They asked if they would be willing to allow the Board of Selectmen to donate some parcels of property to the land trust. And then there were some public hearings held during the Selectmen's meeting. It was quite a process. It took a number of months to go through. And then eventually there were 5 parcels of property that were given to the land trust from the town, with the agreement that if for some reason the land trust should dissolve, the properties would all revert back to the town. And the properties, the land trust, in their agreement with the town, said that those properties would be preserved for public use and benefit.
Okay.
So it wasn't a quick overnight
No.
process. It was quite lengthy.
All right.
John?
I understand what you're saying here, Tammy. I think the town cannot plow a way for the potential need for an ambulance or fire truck. However, if there is a call, a 911 call, and they can't get down there, then you can get a
Well, we're not looking for the
snow
plowing
plow going
anyway.
down to get the ambulance down there.
I mean,
So
because
only
the
when
water runoff-
the event is happening.
the water runs off and it washes the road away because there's a ditch or, what's it called? Culvert that goes under that isn't quite large enough for the water runoff the way it is anyway, so,
Where's this culvert located?
Right dead center of Logan.
thank you.
Two corners of it.
That's what we talked
All the
about.
water that
Yeah,
comes
okay,
into
it's the one we
Logan
talked
Circle
about with
comes from
Doug,
Waterboro.
okay. All right.
And that's what Doug had alluded to a couple meetings ago, that they
Right.
were looking at, how do they take care of that? I'm sorry, I'm Mike Butholat, also a resident. And how do they basically control all the water? Because Logan Circle is basically a pit, as you went down with your bike. It basically, so all the water from a town road like Weber Road is basically coming into Logan and basically heading towards the lake. So,
On that particular issue, we are looking or seeking some more clarification from the town attorney on that. Because it may be splitting hairs at some point, but...
that's the piece that basically what I wanted to talk about after this nice lady we all understand about the public safety in the park, and that's one thing, but how do we preserve the lake? Because you do have, Mola Montang who grades it with a piece that he owns. I bought a tractor and I've got a 7-foot grader blade that I grade just to keep it passable. But eventually what's happening is you can't maintain it right, and eventually what you're doing is you're just funneling everything into the lake. So what we might want to look at is, okay, no, you can't grade it. I know you can't use taxpayers' money to plow it and so on and so forth. However, what we ought to look though is at the preservation of the lake and that nice park so that we can get to it, and so it doesn't get destroyed eventually from huge runoff.
And some of those things that you mentioned are some of the things that we're exploring with the town attorney to see what legal maneuvers that we can take
Because the culvert's like a pre-existing condition.
that
It was
may
there
be able
before.
to facilitate something. But I'm reluctant to go into that in too much depth because I don't want to,
As
you know,
property owners,
give any
because-
false promises or anything.
All right, so it's been said several times that your hands are tied. There's not a lot that you folks can do as selectmen, and I don't hold that against you. So as people of that road, would it behoove us to get in with other agencies involved to help look at the erosion, whether it be the DEP or other federal agencies, to come in and say, look, we've got obvious pictures, this is what's basically washing right into the lake. Would it behoove us to basically get the DEP involved?
Yeah, I think originally, we had the folks out of, was it Portland or in the soil conservation and whatnot, looking at a lot of aspects, and there was some grant money and a lot of erosion issues and sediment issues running into the lake have been improved with that grant money. I think Logan Circle might have been on that list, but I think we hit a roadblock, right, with commitment by landowners. But
quite frankly, shooting from the hip, the roadblock that he is referring to is, and I don't know whether there are people in this room that were present then or not, or
There was
whatever.
a bunch of landowners that wouldn't sign off.
Yeah, there's people that just, you couldn't agree, and said, okay, we don't like this plan, so the DEP developed another plan, nobody liked that either. So DEP, not the town, but DEP in their frustration said, you guys can't even get together on your own, we're out of here. And they spent the money on other areas in town that had been allocated.
the dilemma here, and I hate to revisit history, but the fact of the matter is when all of these roads were originally built, they were for a bunch of cottages that were used on a very, very seasonal basis.
Absolutely,
Okay?
it's drastically different.
And we've went for years and years with the folks on East Shore Road trying to convert and have the town accept the East Shore Road as a municipal road. I think they came to no less than 6 or 7 town meetings with that proposal, okay? And unfortunately, they did not get it for those 6 or 7 years in a row. But the fact of the matter is that we now have a community that has far out produced properties and improved properties, and it's now a year-round residence, right? And we've done nothing to the roads. So when you really go back to the old deed allowances and covenances and whatnot
Sure.
that allowed passage, it was somebody's going to come in here for a few months during the summer, right? And then we're not going to see them anymore, right? Because they came, during the summer season and they were gone. The character of the lake has changed completely, right? Unfortunately, whether it be the municipality, the individual owners, or whatever, no one has ever addressed the issue with the roads. So now we have the infrastructure around the lake that accesses all of these wonderful properties that are now worth a hell of a lot more money than they were
Even
50
10
years ago,
Right.
okay? You can't get to them because nobody is taking care of the road. That is not necessarily the burden of the municipality. I think that's the burden of everyone, right? And if the municipality can help in some form or manner, then that's fine. But I think that's really where we are, and we're now stuck in one of these situations, and we're not...
So it does behoove us to then wake back up the DEP issue and then basically...
I think that's the alternative. If we have a drainage easement off from Weber Road, which the municipality has from a landowner, all right, and that drainage easement is now causing some other issues, those are the things that we have to relook at with our folks in the legal community to say, okay, what did we do by having that drainage easement?
Sure.
Have we exacerbated a problem down at
Right.
the lakefront? Okay.
It's all that water from a town road, basically.
Yeah, and this isn't the only spot.
No.
Okay, I mean,
No,
the
but
stuff
they
that comes
mentioned
down,
many spots that-
the water that comes down off from Townhouse Road and goes under the road in East Shore Road and runs down on the beginning of East Shore Road is another issue. But, there are drainage easements and those were put in place probably when some of these cottages were built, which are now not cottages. So it's a dilemma, and I think certainly we feel for that, but the state law became effective because this is not unique to Waterboro. This is all over the state of Maine. And so what we've done is take the little cottage that maybe your grandparents owned or whatnot that was, hey, it came down for 3 or 4 weeks during the summer, right? And you probably had the privy out back, okay? Now we've converted all of those cottages into year-round homes, and people are living there year-round. So the demand for service has become increased, fourfold, basically.
Yes, Mr. Fay.
You go ahead and see what can be done on that drainage on the first entrance of the Logan Circle. Because that is your biggest problem. If the other end is going to be taken care of as far as you're going through the attorney on changing them culverts, right?
Well, we're looking at what the
Well,
our
we're looking
options
at
are.
it. It's
Yeah.
going to have to be done, There's no question about that. Beside the point, that first entrance is a terrible drainage problem, and that lake, I'll tell you.
And you probably have one of your biggest potential advocates that you probably need to tap into, as any citizen has the right to tap into their elected officials.
He's useless.
I would,
If you're talking
I would,
about,
I
if
would,
you're talking
I would
about
ask that
Aaron
we
Libby,
don't
he's not
have
gonna-
any characterizations of.
Yeah, no, Aaron Libby doesn't want to, because of his principles and where he's going, he basically doesn't want, he doesn't want to do anything about it. I know what you're saying.
Well, I think as citizens in a grassroots effort can petition their legislators to introduce a bill, before the legislature. I mean, you have that right. And
That's what he's there for, to work for us.
Okay.
But I think, excuse me, Fred, but the point is you need to leverage the state representative and the state senator, John Courtney, all right, for the DEP and the Department of Soil Conservation in the state of Maine, all right? They have more leverage with those organizations than we do as a municipality. So that's where you need to put the leverage on to the elected state officials. Sorry, Fred.
I think that's somewhat some of us are looking for is, we know it's a problem, and we know that you guys can't do anything about it, so I think it's a lot of us are looking more as a map, like, guide us, give us the map. How do we get, of that issue?
If I take a real quick look at the 3 tax maps that have properties on Logan Circle, I understand, but there's 40 properties that potentially have dwellings on them, that access those dwellings from Logan Circle. That's a fairly powerful voice, I would think.